Hello YouTube, it's Froogle again, and here we are continuing our flight into Rome. Now I'm quite a way out. I'm actually on the edge of the French, Swiss, Italian border right now. So looking out the window over here, we have a mix of French, Swiss and Italian Alps. Amazing. Doesn't look so threatening from up here. Not as threatening as when you're flying through them trying to land in Innsbruck. I wanted to start the video here, and I'll cut it. You know, it's still an hour or so, hour and a half before I land, but I wanted to start the video here to really talk through the preparation using the Avlosoft EFB for the final approach into Rome. Now, as I said, I'm flying British Airways Virtual. I actually fly with them as my virtual airline. We have standard operating procedures which mirror British Airways. The airline is actually, virtual airline is actually sponsored, or supported I should say, by British Airways for real. So we have access to their standard operating procedures. I've already said in the last video that our favoured landing at Rome, if the weather is not crazy, our favoured landing is runway 16 left or 16 right. The weather is not crazy, and I'm going to take you over to the other computer now. You remember I'm running this on two computers. I have the PMDG 737 on my main computer, FS2Crew on my main computer, and I'm using EasyDock for the cameras. I'm not using TrackIR right now. On another computer I'm running the EFB, I'm using FS Build, I'm using TopCat, I have Active Sky controlling the weather, I've got radar contact, managing all the radar stuff. It's pretty crazy setup right now. Over here on the EFB, you can see where we are. There's the Italian border right there, there's a Swiss border right there, we're in France. You can see there's a lot of aircraft around me as well. So air traffic control has been a little bit busy lately, trying to vector us all. I'm at flight level 390. He's at flight level 350, so we're relatively safe, and he's going the other way. Now, we know from the standard operating procedures that if we're landing runway 16 left, we like to approach by the Zibil 4A approach. We can do all of this in the Avlosoft EFB and get a good idea visually of what this is going to look like, and then go ahead and set it all up. I think I've already set it up in the CDU in the 737, but I'm not sure. So here's the arrival. Here's Rome. Obviously we're coming down here, there's the Zibil waypoint. Now this is going to present some challenges for working with radar contact. Radar contact does not like instrument approaches until you're about 30 or 50 miles away. So I'm going to be about here before I can actually ask radar contact to give me an instrument approach. So although I'm going to have all this stuff planned and set and ready to go and planned out, I'm actually probably not going to do it, not going to be flying the route that I set here. I'm going to be flying the route that radar contact expects, which is here. So from Zibil direct down to Lerf. So once I get here, I'm actually going to be a little bit thrown for a loop, as it were, which is a little annoying unless I turn radar contact off. It's just one of the drawbacks of radar contact, because this is my last point. I should have set a waypoint in my flight route, which was down here, and then it would be better. But anyway, so arrival. We can click on arrival here, and we can actually see a star overview. So we're arriving from the north. These are the stars into Rome arriving from the north. It's actually the Zibil arrival that we're going to be using, so that's the one that we're going to select. So select the star, runway 16 left from the north, and it shows me a selection of stars which fit, in this case Zibi 4A, which is the one that British Airways Virtual's operating procedures recommend. So select that. That shows me when I get here I should actually be going that way, not that way. Oops. And we can activate that. The only problem, as I said, is radar contact is going to be expecting me to fly this heading, which is a little bit of a pain. There is no way around that, unfortunately. Okay, so having done that, if we look down here, following that approach, the last waypoint in that approach is TAC. So now we can get a transition procedure. There is actually two parts to a star. There's the actual approach and then transition onto the runway if you're flying an ILS approach. So we can go here for the approach, and we can click in here and we can say select approach. We are flying runway 16 left, ILS runway 16 left from TAC. That was the last waypoint. Select that, activate. Now we have a full approach. Look at that. I can't zoom out very far on this view, but I can show you what it looks like here. There we go. That is the full instrument approach into Rome. So I'm above 10,000 feet here, and now we need to go to the approach window and see what the restrictions are over here. So over here, our restrictions are at TAC, fly heading 118, and then at Mixo, it's a fairly rapid descent actually, from 10,000 feet up there down to 4,000. Wow. I don't know how we're going to manage this actually. Above 4,000 feet at goal pole, 4,000 or above here, down to 2,500 right here. Wow. Actually, that's bang on 2,500. 2,500 here. Final approach fix right about here is 6.4 miles away from OST. Where is OST? I don't even see. Oh, there's OST. It's actually at the airport. So 6.4 miles away from OST, I need to be at 1,360 feet, and that is my final approach fix, which I can call out to FS the crew. You saw it in some of the other videos. I would say final approach fix. He would ask what's going on, and away we go. What we need to do now then is actually go over to the NGX and set all this stuff in and make sure it's accurate. So let's drop back over there. Okay, so here we are. Let's pop open the CDU. Departures and arrivals. Rome arrival runway 16 left. I think I've already set all this up, or some of it. There we go. Zibi 4A approach, and it is saying the final transition procedure is TAC. So select that. Now let's see if we can actually choose TAC. No. Oh dear. That's kind of awkward. Poses an interesting challenge, doesn't it? Okay. Execute. Let's see what we've got in terms of legs then. So we know our last waypoint was Zibil over here. Now looking at my EFB, and I'll probably lay the EFB screen over the top of this so you can follow along with me right now. At Zibil, max speed of 270 knots. Now that's saying a max speed of 270 knots, so this restriction here is actually wrong. So we're going to change that 270B under. There we go. So I need to be 270 or below. So the next waypoint after that is RF407, and according to the EFB I need to be bang on 19,000 feet, flight level 190, max speed 250 knots. That's how we're getting the descents down there. So 250B slash FL190A. That's the restriction there. That's pretty crazy. Let's move further down. RENAD is the next one. Now RENAD is saying on the EFB I need to be at or above 10,000 feet, max speed 250. So 250B slash, yeah I know we've got a disco. 250B slash, so under 250 knots, bang on 10,000 feet. So FL100A. FL100A. That's all set. Okay, next waypoint. Let's move the EFB down. My goodness, next waypoint is actually TAG. What? Oh, that's correct. That's correct. Except it cleared out my 250B here. Let's try that once again. 250B slash FL100A. That's better. There we go. Next waypoint is TAC, Tango Alpha Quebec. Let's see if there are any constraints on that waypoint. There are. I need to be at or above 10,000 feet, max speed 250B, which we already got. I already actually set that. I said that incorrectly. Now looking at the approach, can I zoom out on this? There's TAC. Straight after TAC, it's recommending Golpo. Oops. Which we don't have. In fact, all of these are approach onto runway. So these are actually all going to go away. They actually all have to go away. We can probably leave that one in. That's outer marker. We can leave that one in. CF16L. Yeah, we got some issues. Alright, so we're going to need to set these in. This is actually going to be quite tricky. Never done this. I know the theory, but never done it. So Golpo above 4,000 feet. So GOLPO. Oops. I think it's that top one. I have no way of confirming right now. Yeah, that is the correct one. Heading 117, 20 miles. Good. I'm zipping through all these waypoints right now, aren't I? So the next one after Golpo is... Can't read that. Mixo at 2,500 feet. So above 4,000 at Golpo to 2,500 feet, just a few miles later. This is going to be a crazy ass descent. Okay. M-I-K-S-O. There. And let's go back to that previous one. I didn't put in the restrictions here, so for... Let's clear that. Above 4,000. So 4,000 or above on Golpo. There. And then the next waypoint, the one we just created, Mixo, we want to be bang on 2,500 feet. 2,500. Oh, it's windy. It's very windy. There. Okay, so the next waypoint after this. Well, actually now we're into these. So it's saying final approach fix here. Let me zoom this out. It's so hard to see on this screen a little bit. I can actually use that as my final approach fix. I don't know why it's 2,500 though. $2,500 down to 1,350 here. You know what? I would delete this one. Just go out a marker. So that's what we're going to do. So this OM16L comes straight up here. Execute. Crazy. That's a pretty slick approach. Now, as I said, radar contact is not going to like that. I will try to negotiate as much as I can so that we can keep radar contact running, but I might just have to terminate him. We'll see. But that's the approach all set up. It's pretty damn crazy. While we're here, incidentally, actually, why is this plane bouncing around so much? Let's go back over to the en-route view here on the EFB. Oh, that's why. 70 knot tailwind. That's approaching hurricane strength tailwind right there. It's not as bad as it was. I had 110 knots, 120 knot tailwind over around Paris at 39,000 feet, just after Paris. So that's not too bad, I guess. Okay, let's go to the descent page. Go to forecast. Transition level is 6,000 feet, so we're all good there. And that's about all we can worry about for right now. When I come back, we should be at top of descent and hopefully not having too much of an issue dealing with radar contact, which is a phenomenal application. It's just a little strange. In fact, before I go, let me explain why it's a little strange. The 737-800 is a slippery, illegitimate child. It wants to gain speed more rapidly than it wants to lose altitude. So if you're told at flight level 390 to send flight level 130 to be there within the next 50 miles, for example, that's actually very hard to do. So there are a number of tricks you can employ. The FCTM, which is the Flight Crew Training Manual, says that you can deploy speed brakes to help you slow down, because as soon as you pitch nose down, you're gaining speed and you risk overspeed. So that's one of the things you can do. Something that is also not recommended, but a little trick, is you can put it into VNAV speed. Currently we're in VNAV path, which means the autopilot is following the route set down here in the FMC. We can take it out of that and put it in VNAV speed and tell the autopilot to command a speed of, say, 210. Slow us right down to 210, and then we can do a level change or even a vertical speed change over here and set a horrendous rate of descent. You know, starting off fairly gradually so as not to upset the passengers, but then climbing up to about 3,000 feet per minute. The speed will increase. We'll drop speed brakes at that point to keep us slowed down as much as possible, but we'll be dropping like a brick, which is one way to counter overzealous air traffic controllers with this aircraft. But it's always a little bit hit and miss, always a little bit touch and go. The ideal situation is that you stay in VNAV path all the way down, which is perfect, but I don't think we're going to get that. Anyway, when we come back, we will try and see what happens.
Speedbird 25. Descend flight level 350.
So there's our descent. Flight level
Descend
350.
350, speedbird 2540.
Set flight level 350.
Flight level 350 set.
So I've set the flight level up now. I've put it into altitude intervene, so we're starting our descent. Notice our rate of descent is very, very low. So what I'm going to do at this point is what I'm allowed to do, which is hang out the speed brakes. I want to get a much faster rate of descent. I know this approach into Rome is going to be hellish in terms of meeting the various steps, so let's pull that speed brake very slowly out towards flight descent. The reason you do it slowly is that you need the autopilot to keep up with what you're doing. If you just yank that speed brake out, you're going to really screw up what the autopilot's currently doing. So you do it slowly, let the autopilot adjust. Let me bring up the legs page here so I can see what's going on.
Ladies and gentlemen from flight deck, we've just commenced our descent, so we'd appreciate it if you'd do what we do up here, which is remain in your seats. Thank you.
Okay, so we're still holding 1,000 feet per minute descent, which is not good. I would really like to see these throttles retarded. So let's do a level change.
Speedbird
Should have retard here.
40 contact. Milano control 133.3.
Now, because we're doing level change, I can manually adjust the speed, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop the speed down here to about 250. The reason I'm going so low is that if I need to now, I can pick up speed, which would let me descend at a greater rate if I need to. Here we go. No descent path after RF 407. There's 407. Now we're heading up to Zibil, which is where we're going to go straight ahead. And I do expect to end up about here before I finally get told I can do a proper instrument approach, which is then going to turn me left and put me back on course and give me a bit more time, I hope. It's a little tricky. So here's 407. Yeah. The reason it's saying no descent path is the FMC is expecting me to be at flight level 255. I am descending flight level 280. So from 280 to 190 and so on and so on, it can't figure that out. It can't figure out how to get me from 280 through 19 and further down.
Milano control on.
Basically, it wants me lower now.
Milano.
Alright, so I think the thing to do at this point is we're going to have to skip the star completely. We're going to have to ask instead to be vectored onto ILS runway 16 left. We're too far into the star at this point to be able to recover where we need to be in terms of constraints and stuff like that. Which is a shame, but it's just one of those things. This would... I wouldn't say this would happen in real life, but being vectored onto an ILS approach isn't that unusual. Here we go.
Contact approach 130.9er. Approach on 130.9er.
Now radar contact will give us a clue here. Here we go.
Approach Speedbird 2.
Runway 34 right.
With you at flight level 120.
Speedbird 2540 approach. Expect vectors to the runway 34 right.
So we'll acknowledge that, but now we'll go and request a new runway.
Speedbird 2540.
So I'm going...
2540, fly heading 120 degrees, descend flight level 90.
Acknowledge that.
Descend flight level 90, heading 120 degrees, Speedbird 2540.
Let me just slow us all down, get us all configured, and now we'll go and request what we want. So we want a request for runway, ILS runway 16 left.
Approach Speedbird 2540. Request runway 16 left.
Speedbird 2540 approach. Expect vectors to the runway 16 left.
Perfect. Just putting the speed brakes out again just to improve our rate of descent, because I am looking at the map there and we are getting pretty close to where we need to be, but we're too high. Flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
Pretty impressive rate of descent now.
2540, approach 13 miles. From the marker, fly heading 130 degrees. Maintain 3,500 feet until established on the vocalizer cleared ILS. Runway 16 left, approach UNH 1010.
Please see the customer service agent meeting this flight.
UNH 1010, fly heading 130 degrees, maintain 3,500 feet, cleared ILS, runway 16 left, approach, speedbird 2540.
Service items.
Altimeter check.
Any other items that you wish to discard or may not be taken off the aircraft with you.
Glide slope alive.
Also, in preparation for landing, please turn on
Alright,
all
glide
lights
slope's
on
alive.
flight.
We are too high, so let's put this in approach mode.
Of a carrier item.
Slow us down.
Please use caution when opening the overhead bin, as items may
Transition level.
on flight. Please stow your tray tables and the curtain seats to their upright position and check.
Altimeter's 1010.
Yes, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Captain, the cabin is secure. Altimeters 1010.
Approach checklist.
Localizer alive. Altimeters 1010.
Set.
Approach checklist complete.
Gear down.
Gear down.
Flaps 15.
Flaps 15.
Landing checklist.
Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down. Green light. Gear down. Green light.
Gear down.
Yeah. Checked. Checked.
Standing by for the flaps.
Alright, so let's wait for that marker, which will be our final approach fix, and then we'll be good. There's the runway. Still only single channel for now, I'm not sure why. I expect that to switch shortly.
Orbit 8312, contact tower 119.3.
Tower 119, orbit 8312.
Flaps 30.
Flaps 30. Flaps 30, green light, landing checklist complete.
Speedbird 2540, contact tower 119.3.
Tower on 119.3. Tower Speedbird 25405 mile final runway 16 left.
Speedbird 2540, tower, runway 16 left, winds 050 at 6.
There we go. We're in dual channel now.
2540.
All configured for an auto land. Final approach fix.
1414 feet.
Check.
Speedbird 2540, runway 16 left, clear to land.
Clear to land. Speedbird 2540.
Incidentally, a point of interest, I already have my physical throttles retarded. The reason for that is with this aircraft, once you come out of autopilot, sometimes the throttles will jump back up. The actual throttles in the aircraft will jump back up to meet your actual throttles on your desk, which is not good. So I have my throttles already back to 0. Anyway, I've got to shut up and concentrate.
— 500 feet.
Checked.
Approaching minimums.
Decision height.
Minimums.
Landing.
Check. Speed brakes up. Reverse green. $60 knots.
Checked.
Speedbird 2540, turn off at the next high speed and hold. Contact ground 121.9er when runway is clear.
Ground on 121.9er.
Okay to clean up.
Check.
Ground Speedbird 2540 at India 1.
Speedbird
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the
2540, ground,
conclusion of our
taxi
flight.
to the ramp.
Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the captain has turned off
Taxi
the
to
seatbelt
the
sign.
ramp. Roger.
And the
Speedbird
aircraft
2540.
So that's really pretty much it for this flight. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Just to summarize, I guess, the key stuff of this. Two key tools that I've used throughout this flight are Avlasoft's EFB, which is a phenomenal piece of software, and Radar Contact. Radar Contact is really very good. It has some quirks, as you've seen, in particular how it handles stars. SID's not so much, but it does add a level of realism that you don't get out of the default ATC, and it's well worth checking out if you get a chance. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please click on that like button. It really does help. And my name is Froogle. Thank you for watching. See you soon.